These are obviously bereaved families, devastated to have lost people due to COVID.
Yes.
And now we've got this investigation to see what happened. Now, why aren't they being listened to?
I don't know. I mean, I think everything about this inquiry has been thrown together quickly. None of us truly know exactly what they're going to cover, what they're not going to cover. It seems to me that they're probably taking the view that there are, quite a lot of families here, over 100,000 families. It's going to be a massive amount of testimony because people do want to talk about what killed their loved one. Of course they do. And so they're probably thinking that it's too much volume and it's the wrong venue for that to happen. But, these people do have to be listened to. And I do wonder if this COVID inquiry needs to actually look at its remit and us as the public have some sort of input into what it is they cover.
What kind of complaints will family members have, do you think?
So I think the biggest complaints are going to be from the elderly, who were denied hospital admission even. They weren't even taken to hospital from their care homes, and I saw that. I saw perfectly well people who, because they were 75, 80 and in a care home, didn't even get taken to hospital when they had COVID. And I had arguments with doctors over it. I wrote about this in July of 2020 because they were talking to me like I was a lunatic, saying, well, why would you put a 80-year-old on a ventilator? And I said, but they might not need a ventilator. They might just need a bit of oxygen. So I think there'll be lots of that from care homes. There'll be parents of children who had comorbidities, had Down syndrome, had genetic disorders, who didn't get beds because people were prioritised. Now, don't get me wrong, Bev. ITU beds are prioritised every single day of the year, and people probably don't know that. I have been that doctor fighting for my patient to get a bed who didn't get one. So it happens. But it's how it happened. I think it all comes back to transparency, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it? I think they're saying that these families will... This investigation is being headed up by Lady Hallett. She's the inquiry chair. And that family members, rather than submitting long testimony, will get to basically write a pen portrait, is how they're describing it, to a private research company as part of a parallel listening project.
It's almost like an art installation, isn't
it?
Yeah, that's what it feels like to me, that.
It feels like theatre. We're part of the COVID theatre, and so it continues. Right, moving on. Now, I don't know about you, Renee, but when I go to the supermarket, you know what I want? I want food. I don't necessarily want... I want some cleaning products. Occasionally, I might want a bottle of wine.
And for it to be over quickly.
To confess that to a doctor. But Asda are now giving away what? Tell our viewers what they're doing.
Yeah, they're giving away vouchers to people who book a vaccine from them and pay for it, of course. These vaccines for the people that are getting vouchers are not free. They're £9.98, which I believe is quite cheap. However, I am absolutely horrified by this as a doctor. And it's part of the reason I've been horrified by this coercive approach that we seem to be developing in the UK. We're not going to tell you about the medication that we give you in any great detail, but we're going to give you a reward if you have it. We saw it with kids. If you want to go to the nightclub, come and have a COVID vaccine. If you want to go to university, come and have a COVID vaccine. If you want to go shopping and get a discount, come and have a flu jab. Now, I'm not saying that people shouldn't have a flu jab. What I'm saying is they should have a flu jab for the right reasons. And I'm astounded that once again, we have something like a supermarket lining the pockets of the pharma companies by coercing people into a medication.
And there'll be people watching who go, well, I don't get it. Why is that a problem? Surely it's a win-win. The customer gets a little bit more money to spend in Asda, the drug company gets their profits, they might get protected from the flu jab as well. Why is it a problem?
Because the lines are too blurred. Lines between taking medication should never be blurred. You should know that you need that medication because of what you've got going on. You should know what's good about that medication, and you should also know what's bad about that medication. There are always bad things about medication. Do people know that 1 in a million people who have a flu jab get Guillain-Barré when they get their voucher from Asda? I doubt it. And that's what worries me about it. It's coercive.
Yeah, it is. And I'm like you, I'm a big believer in a fully informed consent with any medical procedure or drug that you have. At least you know what your risk-benefit might be. Right. Obesity. I mean, we could sit here for 2 hours and discuss the problem this causes the NHS every year. 70 health organisations have urged Liz Truss not to abandon anti-obesity measures.
but it looks like they probably are going to abandon them. And I know, look, I'm a free market woman. I believe that people should make their own decisions about life. I do, however, believe on obesity that we live in an obesogenic society. There is good science to show that when a supermarket encourages you to buy two and get one free, it changes your behaviour. So my view on this is, in that case, let's change people's behaviour for the positive.
Yeah.
We get 64,000 people a year in the UK die from obesity-related disease. It costs the NHS alone £6 billion directly to treat obesity, but another £58 billion to treat all of the periphery and the damage to society. Now, I don't think stopping people getting one and buying one free, why don't we do that on lettuce, for example, or avocado? I don't think that's the whole answer, but I certainly don't think we should be scrapping this. I think we need to go back to basics. We need to look at education, what children learn about food, but we also need to stop encouraging people to make unhealthy choices.
Why is there such reluctance on the part of various governments, do you think, over the years, to truly clamp down on this? I mean, as we saw in the last 2 years, they weren't afraid to get involved in the minutiae of our lives when it involved a virus, but they don't seem to ever be particularly willing to mess around with people's supermarket trolleys.
Do you know what I think? I think it's bigger than that. I actually think that obesity has become that hot potato, like the NHS and reforming it has. And I think the moment you say anything about obesity, you get called, you know, fattest, that people can't help it, that it's not within their control. We have normalised obesity. 60% of the UK population is overweight. 60%. So those people don't want to talk about it. You know, so we're not allowed to either, but we have to. This is a tsunami. It's the biggest issue that the NHS faces.
Yeah, we were already in an obesity pandemic before COVID came along.
Absolutely.